Welcome to the house of your grandma's king. That's me. That's us. I actually can't really see that too well, but I feel like it's... My eyesight just got really bad out of nowhere. I've been doing a few fun things. Well, I have a few fun projects. Well, one's not so fun at all, actually. In fact, I fucking hate it, and I don't want to do it. Whereas, oh, God, I don't want to do it. I got so many that I'm doing right now that... I got a timeline one that I'm going to need help with, because it's up to the point where I need other people's histories, so I'm kind of waiting on that. Then the other project is... So I got the map basically done. You know, like I think it needs a compass, and I had an idea of putting a certain kind of picture of the sun, and I don't want to draw anymore. I'm just at the point where I don't want to fucking draw. But I do need a sun there to represent where the dove is and all that shit. And I don't feel it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm tapping out on drawing. And I'm going to do with the project, somehow, I don't really know how I'm going to do it yet. Either I'm going to draw on it or I don't know. I have a cork roll, and I've got a piece of cardboard. Now it's kind of like basically a cork board, homemade cork board. But what it'll be is the actual map, so we can pinpoint, you know what I mean, like with strings, like he went to here and then that, you know what I mean? We can kind of do that instead of ruining maps all the time. So, just trying to think how I should do it. I don't want to hand draw the fucking map on the cork with probably some sort of ink. Then I was thinking about, you know, cutting the cork into the shapes and laying it on top of either another piece of cork or just the cardboard, and then on the cardboard draw or paint it blue and stuff. It's just, there's too many things, like just... This is why I wish I had people that like a team. I could just pass it off, like just whatever works. So that's the second project, and then the third one is to do with what I've been doing with the what's it called? The like searching through the journals and shit. Because I'm planning on that whole story of Odysseus, the snake in the portal story. As I was going through all this shit, not only was I writing down mentions of the story and stuff like that, to which I got a new journal, but I started noticing something interesting, like the names of places and how they've changed. And I was like, well, you know what we could do is, because I'm unraveling what the forgotten people are, perhaps in the older journals, the older names for places is original names either by the Anaku or by the forgotten people. Much like in history, you know what I mean? Like Saudi Arabia wasn't always called Saudi Arabia, you know, or it wasn't always known as France. You know what I mean? Like, there were names for places. Celtica and fucking Gaul and weird fucking places and Britannia and all that kind of stuff. And I was just thinking, like, well, we would have that in the book too. So I have a map, a very crudely drawn one for the old name places and where I think they might have been. Some of them were like visually, it was shown in a drawing, what it was originally called. Some of them I kind of had a guess at about, like, you know, by how I worded it, like north of here and west of there. Other times it was just like I didn't say at all, or it was very loosely said. So that's kind of what I was working on too at the same time, and I've got quite a bit, and it makes total sense why. But I'll pull the camera over here and then we'll look at it and I'll kind of go over everything. But I think that's kind of what this video I should talk about. So that's what we'll do. Let me set up the camera and move some things, and I'll go over everything and talk about where I want to go with that and why I think it's this and why I think it's that, you know, the usual shit that I'll do. So, let's get to it. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm gonna need, where did I put it? Where's the black one at? Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. You gotta be ready when you're hitting record. You gotta be ready. You know what I mean? I am trying, Grandpa. Alright. Here's generally what I think that they might be. Places that I think that they might be. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can not have to fucking hug the goddamn thing so hard. But, as I was saying, here's generally where I think everything is. Chest hurts randomly. I think, though, that's that light that I'm going to have to just turn off. Bitch! Anyway, this is generally where I think everything is. So, a lot of it, like I said, I kind of had to think, well, maybe it's here, maybe it's there, I don't fucking know. Some of it was actually pretty accurately placed, or thereabout placed. So, for instance, apparently, what I wrote down was the Blightlands. The original peoples called it Nosvota. And Nosvota are the only way through Nosvota is, how do I read that? The Bagosva through the Bagosva Road, and outside of it live the Algiu people. So that's why the Algiu have this region, and this region was loosely known as Forsalo. Forsalo would be the north of Ansar. There's the Salinik peoples that live here as well. So there's 2 tribes that live in the area of Forsalo. I don't know who lives in Nosvota. Sea peoples. I found this randomly on a map where it said sea people. And I don't know if they had, they probably had a name, but I only know them as sea people. Again, this is, I approach it like history. I don't prescribe too much bullshit. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Like, you think I should take my skills to history because apparently that's where they are, but I'd rather do it in a place that doesn't exist. But anyway, so I was able to determine that sea people, whoever they are, live here. Now, I don't know anything about this, but up here, I talked about these islands to the north. Now, the islands to the north, in my mind, from what I thought, would only be up here. Those new islands that are on the new map, that are not on the old ones. Well, Kefrendi. The islands of Kefrendi. So there's a bunch of little chain islands that go up to the northern area, and I call them Kefrendi, and apparently the Nodic tribes live there. So the Nodic people are up in Kefrendi, and for Salo you have the Salinik people and the Algiu. Now, to the south in this region, I don't know exactly what it's called. I'm assuming, I mean, I know it's the Morin coast was here. So is this Morin? I don't know. The land of Morin? No clue, but I do know that the Moorish people inhabit this area, and the Galvez inhabit to the north of the mountains of North Ansar. And as you go south, there's a drop off. Now the placement of the green areas are actually Anaku tribes. I was able to find all of the Anaku tribes that were ever mentioned, and I actually don't know right where they go, but I have general ideas. Like the Intox tribe in this forest, the Naho in this forest, the Vizian in that forest, the Fachu were the main ones in Trinity, the Rene And then I think the Fang, how do you pronounce that? Octu? The Octu, Octeu, Octu. But anyway, I don't really know about those tribes. As you know, the Yanaku people inhabit the forests, blah, blah, blah. This is Kalmandun. I know that the Camaludin and all this that lived there, but in the ancient days, something different was going on. You got to remember, this is before recorded history that started in year 0 of our time, which is AE, which is after the exodus of the forests, is when mankind started, forming and doing this and that. That is the point from which time is being chronicled. This would be any time before the Great War between the Titans and the Aeon, and all the way back to the creation of the world. So I don't really know exactly where this takes place, but it's in that thousands of years span, or 2,000, or 3 or 4,000. I really don't even know how long that fucking span is, from the creation of the world to the actual story of the snake in the portal. No clue. It's crazy like that. Well, actually, Snake in the Portal will be after. I meant the War of the Gods and all that. Not much to go on when it comes to the actual Supernia. I did find that it was once called the Land of Dane, Danne. And there was a couple Anaku tribes that might have lived there, the Jinjin and the Chow Wu. Sounds Asian. When it comes to the islands here, I believe they're the Flessin Islands, and within them inhabit some peoples that I can't find yet. And then there's the Rene that live to the northern forested island of perpetual darkness. The only thing on South Ansar that I was ever able to find are the Bukton and the Yiza folk. The Yiza folk live inside the mountains of Gayufa. I mean, that's what the mountains are called. And it looks as though the Yiza folk inhabit both sides here, so that maybe there's some sort of underground kind of weird fucking thing that they can go under the... I don't even know. Or they just migrated. I couldn't say, but they do live in the mountains of that area. The Bukton inhabit this region down here, and to their north, across the Mesosar Channel, would be the Rus. The Rus people live in the area which used to be called the Valens. The Valens was from the western part of Wulandi all the way up into here. This was the Valens, but as you know, Tantorum and all that, they pushed this little area here. So this area was once the Valens, to which the Ruth people lived, the Kowi and the Valio, as well as the Donuma. And then besides that, there was the two Tortok and Reeth Anaku. So the Tortok and Reeth Anaku inhabited the area of Reeth and were modern day, what is that? I don't even know where that modern day is. I don't know the layout of Tantorum anymore. But that's kind of their area. The Donuma, the Rus, the Kowi, and then the Valio, much like all the other ones in black, like the Moorish, the Algu, the Selenic, the Galve, the Yeze, they are all forgotten people. It's a race of people that were lost to time. They don't really know what they're called, so they're branched into what's called the forgotten people. I think I have an idea that the forgotten people are actually the Dizarin, I believe. The Dizarin, believed to have been the Anaku for a while, I think actually is... I feel like I'm talking about real history. That's ridiculous. But I believe that the Dizarin are actually the cursed forgotten people. I just got the roll thing. It sounds like I'm talking about something real. But anyway, I found a document. I found like old writings that said that these peoples that are somehow related to the Anaku fled into the forests after the Great War. Now, for the longest time, I was like, oh, that's the Anaku people. They fled into the forest. But when it was discovered that they had always lived in the forests, it seems to me that the evidence points at these forgotten people. I think that's in like the first journal I found. So I believe that the Dizarine, however you want to pronounce it, are the forgotten people, and that might be the branch term of what they are. And from that, I think I was able to determine that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tribes of the Dizarine. 8 tribes of Dizarine, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 Anaku tribes. Original peoples. So, I just believe that based on what I found, this is the general area that they inhabited, and anything more than that, I don't know. I have to keep researching. So, yes, I mean, I think I just give general terms as people. So like the Selenic and the Algu people, the Moorish people, the Yeezy folk. I don't know why anytime I talk about mountain people, the word folk comes in instead of people. The Rus people, the Valio people, the Donuma people. Now, moving north and where Gayavala Mountain is, it was originally called the Florist Mountain, at least in their tongue. And in the Florist Mountain, there are 2 interesting peoples that live there. One, the Naril, and I don't know if the Naril is how you would pronounce it in our language, Narhil, but I always want to say Naril. The Narhil, it was said to have inhabited the mountains in the southern portion of the Florist Mountains, whereas the Spider tribes, that's the interesting people, inhabit the mountains as well. And there's a kind of I wouldn't really call it back and forth, but apparently they don't like each other of some description. Now, I don't really know exactly who the Spider tribes are. Are they an Anaku tribe? Are they a forgotten people, a Dizarine? Or something totally different? Are they like a lesser being? Because when the Titans created everything, you had Thys, who really gave life to the Anaku, and Dove, I believe, is the one who gave life to the Dizarine. Thys is the father of Anaku. Dove is the father of the forgotten people. And there's a whole lore when the Aeon come and all this and that, and you'll see that eventually. But I don't know if the Spider tribes are under each one of them. So I know that the Titans made lesser beings. And for the longest time, I thought I would call them subcultures, which probably sounds derogatory, but I, for the longest time, thought the Valio people were a subculture, but I discovered that the Valio are a form of the Dizarine. And maybe these Spider tribes are these lesser people. So I can't think of anything in other fantasy or sci-fi, but because, I mean, if you think of the orcs, they do have an interesting history themselves, but maybe something like that, where they're not human, they're not elf, they're not dwarf, like the main factions, if you want to call it that, but they are a living entity of lowly beings that are only capable of a few things. I don't know. All I know is they rode on the backs of spiders. Mountain spiders. And I know that there was stories that I found of giant beings that live in the mountains for the longest time. These giant spiders that you could see them from the distance. Their creepy fucking legs just protruding out from these mountain rocks. You can see them just kind of moving. And I don't know if that's the ones they rode or the smaller ones, but apparently these mountains inhabited spiders for the longest time. Now, in modern day Lyria, which used to be Assyria, are the area called Breve Thols. Now, I don't know if that's just the name of the area or a group of peoples. I think it was the area. I just can't really encompass how large it was, but I do feel like it took up a lot of what is now Lyria. Within that area lived 2 people, kind of on the borders of it, and that would be the Innu, I-N-N-U, the Innu, and the Tuxern. The Tuxern are another forgotten people, and so are the Innu. And off to the northern border of that are in what is considered the Aik realm. The Aik realm, according to the old sources, is where Aik Beothuk took his land. So north of the Flores Mountains, north of Guyabala Mountains, is where his realm was. This kind of slop land, or this weird fucking place that becomes that, I should say. Now, oh yeah, Varlam. That's right. Varlam's that land of, I don't remember if it's called the Mephos now, or what the fuck it's called, but there's the Murphos that sits here, and there's a mountain chain that divides the river. So this river here, which is the Unfans River, and then there's the mountain. There's like this land here, and I was able to determine that it's called Varlam, the land, and I don't know who lived there. Now the interesting thing that I was able to find is in modern day of Adrana, in south of Alia of Adrana, what does it say? Svarin? Yes, I was going to say Sarven. It's Svarin, the Svarin people. Or sorry, territory. The territory of Svarin. I don't have any kind of recollection or... what's the word I'm looking for? Or evidence of any peoples living there. Also, Laupa. Now, I think Laupa, modern day Laupa, is like a island chain or something off to this like western area, off into like Alandria and shit. But apparently, that was what I don't know where at, and this is the hard part, is determining where in these areas, because you have hundreds of miles, if not thousands, to place these names, and Laupa was somewhere inside the Murphos Desert, and this might have been before it was a desert. This might have been when it was like a beautiful place, because we know the Murphos was created by the Forgotten King. So whatever it looked like there, apparently somewhere in there, or the entire place, is called Laupa. The Aktu tribes live there in the northern, where modern day Elbadan is a land of Ansari. And in Ansari is a lot of shit. You got the Enzio people that live in the southern portion of it. You got the Kissians, above what was then called Forge Mountain. And then in the area called the Taiklorhiu Forest is the Fang tribes that live. And I think there's other things too, like there's a place called Lurante, which Lurante, I believe, might be where Aik's realm is, because Lurante is some sort of marshy, swampy land. And that's really it. That's all I was able to determine so far through my searching. I mean, it was kind of passive searching while I was looking for information on the story of the Titans and Forgotten King, and most importantly, Odysseus. Odysseus' story will change everything, and I'm finding puzzle pieces of it, but as I was going through, I just was seeing all this shit. So I was kind of like, let me just kind of take notes, and I'll create the map real quick, and I'll just write down and just see. And as you can see, it's very well inhabited in here. Decent up here, but not a whole lot going on in Dane, or Dane, however you want to pronounce it, or the south. And I don't know if that means it's because no one lived there, or recorded history did not... let me see how I word this. I'd have to talk to Jacob, because I'd have to see his original concept. So that's kind of what I did with this, was original ideas that I scrapped can just be the past. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and then you just change them from people into something else. So here, I just got to see what was kind of going on there, maybe, if there was anything going on. Or was it just the giant realm of trees and the Anaku all kind of inhabited it? I believe so. I mean, past the Yizé folk in the mountains there of Gaiufa. I mean, maybe it was just a Naku paradise. Dane, or the Dane, same. I mean, it could just be these massive, beautiful forests that live up there and stuff. So, the newest cool thing though is I love the Kefrandi Isles in the north there. I don't know why, I dig it. The only mystery people so far are the sea peoples. Like, who the hell are the sea people? Are they related to the what were called the sea elves? Which are in Naku? I don't know. I have no clue. But that's a quick overview of what I've been working on, honestly. But yeah, I think that's kind of generally all the good stuff that's been happening with that. And then I haven't really been doing anything other than that. Like I said, there's a lot of there's a lot of little projects that are all like they're reliant on each other to move forward. This one needs that one to get to this place. This one needs something to get to that place. And the hardest project for me is like the drawing of the map with the cork board and all that. Because I feel tapped out on drawings. I really do. I just feel like, okay, I get it. I can draw a little bit, but I don't want to be an artist, you know? It's overwhelming to constantly have to like go, it feels like, at least, going above your skill set, in a sense. Like your comfort zone of skill set. It's like, I don't see myself as an artist. I don't see myself as I hate using the word because it sounds so lesser, but a drawer or a painter or something like that. I just don't see myself as that. I feel more like a historian that I do that. Like, you know, that's what I enjoy. Oh, God. But, so I think right now, the project, it's just a lot. I don't want to put in negative or any kind of attention that's just not going to do it justice kind of thing, where I'm not invested. When I drew the second map, not the one behind me, but the other one, I felt like I really enjoyed that process, and I haven't ever since. It's kind of always how it goes. Like the first few journals of making the world were fun, but then after that it got too much and tedious and just annoying, and I just hated doing it. This map was a fucking struggle at times, but then there were times where it wasn't. But I never went to it until I felt like I was gonna do something well. And even then, there are portions of this map I fucking despise because I rush through it. Like, I try to take people's advice passively. Like, no one specifically said this, but you just gotta get in there, you gotta just do it, and you gotta just charge through. I'm like, that's bullshit. Because every time I do, I hate the outcome. And I feel like it's ruined. Like, there's portions of the map that aren't as good as other portions. So I won't do that again. I think it's because the people that I've heard give that advice, they're talking about physical shit. Going to a gym or getting up early or fucking eating healthier or whatever. Like, that's easier to do with that mindset because it's only physical. I was thinking about it when it comes to this stuff, which is super mental. I guess it could be physical if I make it, but it feels like it has to be done right. It feels like it needs to pass through this kind of filter. So it's like, I could be ready to do something, which I always am. I'm so ready. Every day off, every time I come forward, I'm ready to get in the book. But there's a thing that it's just like, if that's not activated, that light's not turned on, I learn to not go to the book or anything, because that thing is some sort of divine thing. I don't know if it's the hand of God. I don't know if it's higher consciousness thing. I don't know if it's the creative process. Like, whatever terminology it is, there's a thing that's looming, and if it's off, then I want to work on the book, but I can't because this is not on, so I have to like fucking hang out, and then it'll turn on. I'm like, fuck, okay, then I'll start working on the book. That's how it feels. It's not like a physical thing where you can power through it. You know what I mean? Just get the job done and just be consistent and all that. Like that's cool and all for physical things or light mental things, but not like the shit that I'm trying to reach through is things that are bigger than most shit people do. Like the idea around this book is a mythology. The idea of a mythology is something that brings you closer to what this place really is. What is God and what is everything? I've been looking into Joseph Campbell again, and it's essentially like that. It's a mythology. It's a spiritual movement. It's a philosophy. It's something that's more than just human. At least it tries to be. I'm not saying it is. It's just that's my goal, and so it's hard to like force consciousness shifts, or it's hard to force a divine hand. Like just fucking do it, and he'll come. Like it doesn't work that way. So that's kind of why my production seems to just be up and down and up and down, and like there was like, what was it? I think it was, what's the month before November? October. The month of October and into November was extremely productive. I think I was working 5 days a week after my job on stuff, and that's how I was able to come up with the flags and the nations and stuff. Like I hit a spell of a few months all the way into December a bit, but then it went to a halt because of stupid shit at work and how people are, and I kind of feel like it's kind of, it's harder to come by. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't, and you can't really control it. And you don't know how long it's going to last, so you just roll with it. Because I don't know how to explain to people like about forcing something and how it's not right. And you'll always go back and be like, yeah, I knew I shouldn't have forced it because it sucks and I have to erase it all. This is a mental process. It's a book, Which in turn got me thinking about stuff like, so I was watching this little interview, I guess, a collection of interviews, the only ones, honestly, of Tolkien, right? And he was born in 1893 or something like that. And I think he died in the 70s. I don't really know. Either that, no, because it was like 68 he was doing the interview, so he must have died in the 70s. That's quite a life, right? Now, the thing I was thinking about is I was born in 1991. If I'm not mistaken, his first, like The Hobbit, I think he said it was published in the 30s, which means, equivalently, it would be the 2030s before I finally published my first book, if I were to like follow his trend, right? And then I wouldn't have written The Lord of the Rings until I was in the... What did he publish those? Was it the 50s? I don't remember. I don't remember how long it was. But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's only 2023. I'm 31 years old. I'm essentially a little bit older than Tolkien was at the time. Like, 1893 to 1993. Where I sit now, and I started thinking about other authors and other writers and people that make art, nobody, what I've come to realize, I think, and I don't think, not saying this is right for everyone, but nobody gives a fuck what a 20-year-old thinks. From 20 to 29, nobody gives a fuck. I'm starting to realize that. Now I'm only 31, I'm only 2 years into my, whatever, you know what I mean, like, technically 2 years into my 30s. And I'm starting to come to that realization, and that there's a whole other chapter, right? I got a whole different life that I'm looking forward and ahead of myself. And the first book makes sense that it was written in my 20s. It was finished at 30, but it was written in my 20s. That makes perfect sense to me. And encapsulating that moment, and I just kind of have to keep that in mind. But the next one, it may take a long time. Because this is not just some fucking published book that I want to give people a fun little story, and I want people's attention to see, look how good he is, and this and that. The whole goal of the videos, the whole goal of the books is to shape, is to show growth. The second book will be the 30s, my 30s, because of what Eris is going to go through, because he's the main focus of it all. Then the next one will be, later in my life, when I find that there's these segments of growth. Damn it. So I was thinking that will shoot your production down if you ever had any. But then I realized that there's so much potential, because the story of Eris is it's the true mythology, but it's the true idea of human growth as a man. But then it's okay, there's so much that happened before. And that's kind of what I've been exploring. So it's the story of the Titans and the story of Odysseus and Tanais and Quinlan and all that stuff, right? I talked about it before, where it's there's all these different stories that I could write. I think I made a little list of it. That's what I can do, and I just, that's the wealth of information that I need to hone in on and need to define. And so I've been doing that. I've been defining the pre-story. I've been getting down everything that happened before the stories, the main book. Here's what led to it. And I don't really know how to release that information, in what fashion, or how much I need to release. I don't know. But I do know that there's enough story there, and I do want to explore how everything came to be, at least when it's affected by mankind, and the Anaku and everybody. And for me, that's obviously the story of Odysseus. That, and the story of Tanais as well, but mostly focus on Odysseus and how everything is shaped by that event of his. And that truly is kind of written in such a way where I really rely on mythology. For me, the strongest mythology, for whatever reason, what touches the creative side of me the most, would be Greek. I don't know why. For some reason, when I think old stories and I think of how the world came to be, I just think of the Greeks. I don't really think of Native American ones or ones from India, or Chinese or something. Those don't hit me on the same level. I know they're all influenced by the same story. I believe that, much like Joseph Campbell, I think it's all connected. I think there really was a flood, and there really were gods, and the pantheon at least, and that's kind of where my story kind of jumps in too. It's I try to explore that in a different way of who could have the gods have been. To us, they're looked at as the way the Greeks portrayed them, but let's talk about who they are to themselves, and that's what I try to do. But anyway, back to the point. I was thinking, well, this is a perfect thing to really explore in some of these stories. And so that's what I've been doing, and I've been seeing parallels. And I think the true hero's journey, if there were one, would be Odysseus. And his going into the true unknown. And it's a perfect story, and so that's where I'm kind of compiling information. like I said, I'm writing down notes and plotting out the entirety of the world and how I can do it all. Like, how can I make this truly happen? You know, how can I connect to everything? Because that's the hard fucking part. Because what I'm doing essentially, as I said, I think, was in the journals, there's a lot of me planning out the story. And then the hero's going to go and do this, and then that'll happen. And then he goes here, and, you know, I'm storyboarding ideas, and, you know, none of them, I would hit dead ends. Like, and then he tries to find the orb, and then the orb is this ultimate thing, and then I would be like, oh, why? And then I'd walk away from it and try another, like, okay, well, now he's doing this, and from that, the true story of Eris, as I've written it now, was born. But there's a lot of ideas that go up to a road and the road just cuts off, but there's potential there. So the real Eris story is born from 15 to 20 failed stories. Well, in there, I can use those, compile them, some of them put together, and create stories of other characters because I think they're good. And as I'm reading one of the second to last stories of Eris, I was like, this is the story of Odysseus. His going into the forest, like it all added up. You know, like he meets certain things happen, certain reveals, just change a few character names, and that's Odysseus and his friends, or his people on his journey with him. And now we have a new story that was born out of the ashes of the story of Eris. And I like how it recycles, because I'm a firm believer in recycling my concepts and stories. But I also like that it is an echo. You'll see similarities between the story of Eris and the story of Odysseus. And you'll see how they truly are the same person, just in a different way. Not just because of the family ties, but more because their stories are echoed, but there's a different element to it. Eris is rising from nothing, Odysseus has everything and goes to nothing. So it's kind of a balance, you know what I mean? So there's like a lot of different little elements like that where I just felt like it was just too perfect to throw off. And then that's why I never did, because I was just like, man, these stories are cool and all, but how can I use it? So yeah, that's kind of what I've been literally doing the past month, this month, whatever. I mean, right now we're in the end of February. That's all I've been doing in February. And before that, the previous month, all I was doing was timelines. And the month before that, the last I worked was early December. So December I didn't do a whole lot, but before that I was working on countries and this and that. So I may have taken a hiatus from people a little bit, but it was for a good reason. I had to get back to what I was doing, my work. I find myself focusing on other people so much that I neglect my own, and this past half of a year almost has been just purely focused on the book and growing it. And it's just in the past 4 months, let's just say, it has grown so fucking much. It's more than it was a year ago. Like, every time you put effort into it, the more it grows. Sometimes it gets hard because you gotta find connections, you gotta look at things differently and be like, oh fuck, like, now how does that work? But at the end of the day, you're problem solving, you're creating more lore, and you're doing damage control, and you're filling in potholes or plot holes. You're stretching everything. It's just, I think everyone gets it wrong with time, man. I think the biggest problem that people have is that they like to work way too fast. They have to pump things out in months. They're like, oh yeah, he worked so hard for like 6 months. Like, that's nothing. You know what I mean? When I heard for the first time that Tolkien took 14 years to really hone his book, the Lord of the Rings. I was like, shit, I'm only like 6 or whatever it was, probably like 5 years away from it. And it made me feel better. I was like, oh, thank God, because I've been at this for like 8 or 9 years. So I'm not crazy. There's something about time that I think people fuck it up. And I mean, look at all the movies now; they suck because they're just rushed through, and there's no chances taken. It's the same stupid story over and over again. And the new mythology is full of self deprecation and love of something. There's just a lot of ridiculousness. I'll just say that. The modern story is kind of a fantasy within itself, if you will, of how it views the world and how it thinks the world should be. Which, whatever, that's just what you got to do, I believe. But I think there's where the issues lie, and for me, the process of a story that took your entire decade of life. You went through so much too, so you can relate that with the character. You grow with him. I mean, Eris is 10 years old. That's not, like, from creation-wise, that's pretty fucking crazy. He's the character that's been alive for 10 years. It took him about a certain amount of months to finally get a name, but I gave him a name in the first journal, halfway through it. So, whatever, like, let's just say 4 months or 6 or whatever. But that's pretty crazy. To think that, that's how old the character is. If the character was a child, he'd be 10 right now. Like, when I made him. So, and same with a few of the others that were a little bit later. Maybe they're also 10, but there's months that make him a little bit younger. Or years. I think that's fucking cool. So, my character in my mind has grown that long. I've seen him flourish in his darkest times, and I know what's to come, which is crazy. Like I made him up, and I gave him a story. Bunch of times I tried and just failed, and I never thought about his childhood. And then I got going forward. Then I gave him some of a childhood that only went back a certain amount of years, but it's mostly blank. And then I kind of finally figured out where he was born and why. And within this year, I finally figured out his story. And I'd known him for like 9 years or 8 years or whatever. It just shows you the depth you can really search for in people. Like how well you can actually know them, and that'll come in handy when you're writing. Because it feels like, well, fuck, I already know him. I know exactly what he would do. I envy people that can work fast. Like a Stephen King, who can pump out stories that quick, but I can't do that. And I won't do that, because that's not who I am. For me, it's about maturity, it's about age. I mean, as a writer, I think you're writing yourself. You're writing a part of yourself and your story and the way you look at the world and in your imagination. So, I mean, shit, mine's slow. Mine's like a turtle, man. Like, it takes a long time for me to get something, or for me to like something, or for me to enjoy things. It takes forever. If I get a new game, I'm not playing it very actively, and all of a sudden, a year later, I'm like, okay, I think I like this. It takes a long time. Or people. I don't know if I like this person, but I hang out with them for a long period of, or stretch of time, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it's been a few years, I think I like them. It's just how it's always worked for me. I take my time on things. I wouldn't say I milk it for what it's worth, but I definitely explore every avenue of whatever the fuck it is. And I accidentally, took to the books. That's it. I think that's all it really is. And that's what I've been doing this past few months or whatever, however long it's been since I've contacted certain people in my life. My family, God, it must have been almost a year, since they really heard from me. So, it's just, writing is a very strange art form. I mean, making music takes a long time for me too. If I had it my way, if I could have a studio and everyone wanted to play music with me and we could make albums, we would not be pumping out albums in months. It would be like, I would be that band where I'm like, in 2 years, well, maybe we'll have an album, because I honed it and I crafted it, you know, with these people. Like, I just love slowly doing things. So, but the slowest form of doing it has got to be like being an author, writing. There's just so many moving parts, and to me, everything matters. It's hard to say like, oh, that backstory doesn't matter, or like, well, their side story doesn't matter, you know, or like where they were born to. Like, I can't do that. I'm like, I need to know where everything, like, where was this character born? What year? Why? How? What did his mother think? What did his father think? Like, I have to do all that shit to find this person. Because in real life, if I talk to somebody and I barely know you, I need to know about parts of your life so I can kind of see where you are, where you came from, how you speak, why do you speak that way, until I can determine like what kind of person you are. And in what way can I help you, or in what way can we be friends, or whatever the relationship may be. That's kind of what it always is for me. So I approach writing the same way. These characters have to be explored as richly as possible before we can move forward and take them on the journey. You know what I mean? Like, Eris is gonna go off and live a fucking swath of his life soon. You know, like, he's gonna do so many things. I need to know him before he does that a little bit better. I want to make sure he makes the right decisions, because the strange thing about writing is, I think, if you do it right, it writes it for you. You kind of, like, you're witnessing it. It's so weird. It's like the story is being played out in front of you and you're just recounting it, and they're talking, and they're the ones choosing the words they say, and they're the ones that are making the decisions that they make. You'll have to go back and edit it, of course, and stupid shit, which I hate, because I feel like it just takes away from the vibe of it. But he's got to be a better writer, honestly. But still, I think there's something interesting about watching something happen. I mean, it happens in music too, where it's just like, I don't remember actively choosing to do this in this song, or we never talked about this. It just kind of happens naturally. For me, that's best explored in that concept I was saying, where this hovering thing, this hand of God, is what I keep thinking of it as. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but that's how I think of it. And I feel like that's what that is. It's just like, that's why it takes so long for me, is because that doesn't just happen when I want it to. It takes its fucking time. It comes when it needs to come, you know? But anyway, this almost feels like it's two separate videos, honestly. Yeah, it might be. Maybe I'll break. I don't have a lot of short videos. I don't like short ones. I like to have videos at least 30 minutes. But, yeah, I'll have to break it apart from the old world and then this. So, yeah, I'll title the first one The Old Worlds, and then this one might be Thoughts About Writing. I don't fucking know. We'll see. Until your grandma said, hey, let me know next time.